What's up, y'all? In the last video, we did 3 important things. We got an IDE, we made an index.html page for the homepage, and we accessed that website in a browser. In this video, we're going to make a template page, just call it template.html, and we're going to fill it full of all kinds of good stuff. CSS stuff, styling stuff, tables. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so let's go ahead and open Atom or whatever your IDE is. I'm going to use Atom, no more Notepad++ for me. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and change that folder, the file that I made in the last video, the Notepad file. I'm just going to change that to my template. So let's go ahead and open up a browser and copy the full path of the mytemplate.html, and we can see hello world, just like the other index page that we made. I'm starting in the footer because when you type a lot of code, it'll push everything down often and the footer can be easily forgotten. So I'm just going to start there, and you'll notice I'm kind of filling up the tags with a bunch of style and width and height. I'm about to go over what all of that means, so no worries there. Let me just get this and then we'll take a peek at it. While I'm doing this really quick, notice the blue dot on my file tab. That's because I need to save the file before I refresh the browser. Alright, so now let's look at this, what I have here. In the footer tag, we have a style attribute, and in that we have the background color. You can do many other things with the background, as you can see here. Inside the footer, we have the table, and we're going to specify the width to be 100% as well as the height. It's important that we use percentages right now. Notice there's also a style attribute in the table tag. That's because you can have styles for many different things. In this case, I use the text align center. That centers it in the cell. So don't think rows or table. It centers the text within each cell that is in that table. So inside of the table, I have TR and TD elements. TR stands for row, TD stands for table cell. Specifically, TD stands for table data, but it means table cell within each row. It acts like a column. Here's a list of some table tags. Now we've covered the footer and we've also covered the structure of a table. If we look in the browser, you can see how it looks. Now we're going to add some CSS properties in the head tag. Notice how I'm adding comments. It's very useful not only for yourself, but anyone else who might read your code. Anything for CSS styling that you want to take place in the entire file, you're going to want to put in this style tag. To declare global CSS styling, you can make a separate file and then just reference that file in this header. You would do that in all of the files that you want to use your CSS styling for. Now let's go ahead and take a peek at what's inside. First, notice the style tag. In here is where you get to define all of the default styles and properties of anything that could exist in the file that the head is in. We are going to do a table, the table cells, and the table rows, and we're going to style the borders. This helps a lot with designing, especially if you don't use Photoshop. After that, I put a:link. That's for any clickable links, and I'm just changing the color for them, and I'm removing the underline by saying text decoration none. By default, clickable links will be underlined. And lastly, we have the title, which I'm just going to stick with hello world for now. Now let's take a peek at what it looks like in the browser. There aren't any link effects because we don't have any links, but you can see the borders that have been put in place now. The next step is usually the most fun. It's filling the web page with all the contents. This takes place in the body. You'll notice as I'm typing this, I comment above it background table. And what I mean by that is this table is going to act as the background of the body of the web page. So any other tables that will exist within a table cell of this table. It is extremely important to remember that when you're making your web pages, because as you'll see right here, as I will show you, I make an error right here and my footer becomes part of that table. As you can see the background change, and I begin to look around wondering what the issue is, and I completely miss that I forgot to do an end tag for my table, for my background table. And I don't think I even caught this throughout this entire video. So the worst thing that happens to me is I have to go into the footer and manually just style it because I never caught that end tag. So that kind of shows the importance of the syntax of HTML. You're not going to get a bunch of errors like you would in a lot of other languages. It's very light on errors. Now notice how when I change the size of the window, any size, my table will fit that size perfect. Now that's why I'm using percentages. That's why I'm only using percentages as the main width of the table. And then you have to make sure that the width of the table cells within that table, their percentages will add up or sum to 100%. That way you won't have any issues on most devices figuring out how to size things. So now let's go ahead and break down what we have in the body so far. I styled it with a font family. I chose Impact. Here's another list that you can choose from. There's even more than that. I also have a background color. Now, the first thing I'm putting inside the body is a div statement, and that's going to act like an invisible box that you can't see, that you can add attributes to, and you can style it certain ways. So right now I just have a V align, that's a vertical align to the top, and I have a normal align, it's just a horizontal align to the center. In the table, the width and height will be set to 100%. I'm aligning it center, and I'm styling the background and the font size. Notice how I've put a comment labeling this row as table row 1, specifically background table row 1. Inside this row, I have 7 columns, 7 TD tags, but I'm going to change this to 8 because I'm forgetting a spacer. Also, my math isn't adding up completely, but most browsers will do their best to make it fit as good as it can. I fixed mine in just a moment, and you should always make sure your numbers match though. Inside the table cells that aren't spacers, I have anchors to references. You'll see the href with quotation marks. Inside the quotation marks, you put the path to the file that you would like the clickable link to go to. Here I use my index.html and a hashtag to reference the top of the page, but you can use whatever. Don't forget to put your ending table tag in there too. That completes the first row, which will be the navigational links. Now let's take a quick peek at what it does in the browser. You can see the color that has been placed on the links, and you can see 7 table cells, 7 columns. At the very end on the far right, that is where I'm missing my 8th table cell. It will act as a margin. Now let's go ahead and do the rest of the rows that will make up this page. Here I'm just going to make one row and copy and paste it a couple times, and I'm going to enter into my first row, give it a col span, and this is where I realize that I should have 8 columns. I go in there, I add the spacer, I change the numbers around, make sure everything works, and then I create my first, other than the navigation links, my first actual content area. And I'm going to put an image in here. It's nice to have a big image that catches the attention of whoever's going to click on your link. People call this the above the fold area of your web page. Now, if you're gonna put a lot of effort into building a web page, you might as well get a professional photo, and specifically one that has bigger dimensions than 1920 by 1080, at least the same size, if not bigger. Anything smaller will get, if you do make your web page the entire screen size, your image will have issues within the table cell because the browser cannot pull extra information to make your image bigger, so the image might just repeat or something along those lines. Bigger images do also have issues, but generally speaking, it's better to have more resolution than not. Now notice that right here, when I try to move this image over really quickly, I accidentally bring a whole folder over with me. If you do that, no worries, just right click on the folder and remove the project folder. What you want to do at this point though, before you insert any images, is you do want to make an image folder and you want to keep all of your images in there. And so whenever you reference an image, you'll know in the path to start with images. The image I use has very high resolution, and you'll see one of the issues that you have right here with these high resolution images is it makes the window scrollable instead of making the image adjust to the screen size. We're going to make it adjust to screen size, more specifically the table cell size, by making the width and height 100%, and now it's going to fit the screen. So now that it fits, I'm just going to add a border radius of 12, make it nice, give it a nice visual effect to round it, and then go in the header and change the border to 0 pixels so I can see what it will look like without the border lines on there. I'm also going to change some things around in the navigation menu, change the font size around how I like it. Maybe add the table cell with the username in it slightly bigger than the other clickable links to give it a nice visual effect. Now in the next table row down, I want to add a certain set of columns specific to how I like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this table cell the span 8 to take up all of the columns, and inside of it I'm going to put a table. Inside this table I'm going to make 3 rows that are spaced with spacer cells. Note how I'm making the percentages add up to 100% right here. Since this is just a template, I'm going to go to Google, type in lorem ipsum, find a generator, and it's going to give me a text generator with just a bunch of lorem ipsum text in it. I'm going to fill those 3 columns with the template text. Now notice I'm going to go into the table cell height and I'm going to start playing around with things. When the table cell is at 100%, it shrinks with the text all the way down. I'm going to switch it to 300 pixels, and that will make it have a certain ceiling. So when the text shrinks, the table cells will stop shrinking at a certain point. Now let's go into table row 4, and here I'm just going to put a table with a colorful background. I could put contents in here, but I'm not going to because it's a template. I'm just going to do this mainly for visual effect. In table row 5, I'm going to make an about me or about us area. This is just going to be the normal table cell, span 8, containing another table, just like we've been doing with all the other rows. But this table cell is going to contain ID equals about us section. We're going to give it a label. Now every time we click on that, it'll take us to that area. I'm going to go up to the clickable link, the navigation area, and put that hashtag section area in there, and it'll take me to that area when I click on it, just like that. I want this to be just 2 columns with their own margins, so I'm going to put in my spacers and my columns, and I'm going to make one of the text fonts 48 pixels, very large, and in the other one I'm just going to put another lorem ipsum text. Finally, I'm going to go to the home page and notice that it's still the same way we had it set up before. I'm going to go in there and actually I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to add an anchor reference to the template page and make sure it works properly, and it does. And from there we have just completed our template.html page. The only thing left for me to do now really is to just remove these borders, make the border 0 pixel in the header style, and that way I can see what it's going to look like from the user's point of view. As usual, comment, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you guys.